What is renunciation? In chapter 6, the very first verse, he gives a brilliant definition.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sasannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha.
Who is a sannyasi? One who does what one ought to do. Anashrita karma phalam, without depending upon the fruit of action. Such a person is a sannyasi, a yogi. Then he clarifies, not one without agni, no, niragni. Agni means ideal, not a person who doesn't have a higher ideal to aspire for and reach. Nor akriyaha, not a person who is inactive. So very clearly spells out, renunciation is not inaction. Renunciation is dynamic action, giving up anxiety for the fruit of action. Why he's saying this is, when you practice karma yoga, bhakti yoga and jnana yoga in the manner that they should be practiced, you will come across laurels and accolades. Prizes and awards will be given to you. You'll meet with success. But when you meet with all this, you shouldn't allow this to get to your head, topple your personality. See, either there are unsuccessful people, or the few people who reach success, it gets to their head so badly that then they're lost. How is it that you keep your balance? Because you understand its inherent value. It's still a worldly thing. And you're focused on getting to the transcendental, that which is beyond the world. And this concept has been beautifully portrayed in a movie called Lock Up, where he speaks of a man who is imprisoned. And right through his prison term, his focus is only on, how do I get out of this prison? This is not my life. My real life is beyond the prison. So whatever he does is geared towards just getting out of prison, preferably on parole. And yet, while he's in prison, he has to do something. So he gets together, he's an engineer, he gets together with others and repairs a battered down car there. And they get it in perfect working condition. And they turn the ignition and it comes on and this guy drives around in it. And the prison warden, who is against him for some strange reason, gets a few people to beat that down. That car is beaten into pulp, totally destroyed. And his teammates get upset over it and they come to him and say, you know what's happened? So he says, why are you upset over it? Don't you understand? This is a prison. And all this that's in the prison belongs to that guy up there, the prison warden. He allowed us to make the car. He chose to destroy it. That's his. What have you got to do with it? Why are you upset? Your focus should be on, how do I get out of this prison? Don't get affected. This is what is real renunciation. If you understand that you're in a prison and all your activities are determined by the demands of the body, mind and intellect, and this prison warden, the body, mind and intellect, is far more demanding, far more vicious than that prison warden in the movie. They drive us crazy. And the day you understand that you're imprisoned and you conceive of a state of freedom, that is renunciation. And then you're not affected by anything that goes on in the world. You may get the Nobel Prize, you may get the highest award that the country has to give you, Bharat Ratna, or you may be denounced. It is of no concern to you because you understand nothing is yours, it's all his. Renunciation, when you function like this, you become a conduit for Atman to flow through. That's when you really come to terms with your real potential. And after you reach the state of renunciation, you become meditative by nature. Meditation is when your mind is no longer harassed by demands of the world and it's available to you. You give it a point of focus, a point of concentration, the mantra you keep repeating. The mantra that you repeat is, say, for instance, Om, Om, Om. You bring the mind to single-pointed concentration on the thought Om. The mind is chanting the thought, so the thought flow goes on. And the intellect is aware, supervises this thought flow. The intellect is distinguishing, discriminating between sound and silence. You continue for a while and then the mind stops the chant. When the mind stops the chant, the Om is gone, the sound is gone, the thought flow is gone. When the thought flow is gone, the mind gets extinct. The intellect, which so far was distinguishing between sound and silence, doesn't have anything to discriminate between. So the intellect is jobless, it goes out of action. And what remains is Atman. You reach that state of realization. Now, human effort can only get to that last thought. Beyond it, once you get to the last thought, that last thought is so pure, so subtle, that it dissolves by itself and what remains is Atman. He puts this beautifully in the 66th verse of chapter 18.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः.
Having totally abandoned all dharmas, dharmas means attributes, take refuge in me alone. Do not grieve. I will release you from all sins. So, in this verse, he gives us the assurance. All you have to do is bring your mind to that single-pointed state. Thereafter, I'll take care of it. When he says, take refuge in me alone, he's not speaking of Krishna and his personality. Me means Atman. So there's a Catholicity in this philosophy. Whichever master you follow, you get to that point of single-pointedness. And he says, don't worry, don't grieve. I will release you from all sin. And then you enter that state of realization, which is inconceivable by the human intellect. The intellect cannot conceive it, the mind can't feel it, the body can't capture it. And yet he puts it across so beautifully as if you actually understand it. He explains this in verse 70 of chapter 2.
आपूर्यमाणम् अचलप्रतिष्ठम् समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी.
As the ocean which filled from all sides with waters entering it remains still, so one in whom all objects of desire enter obtains peace, not the desirer of desires. See, he emphasizes this. Saha shantim apnoti na kama kami. That person attains peace, not the desirer of desires. And yet, the moment you walk out of here, what will consume you is desire. Can I have a cup of coffee? I don't know if coffee is available. I'm just giving an example. So, that state of realization. He gives a brilliant formula for happiness. And that formula for happiness is happiness equals desires actualized divided by desires harbored. Happiness equals the number of desires you fulfill divided by number of desires you entertain. Assuming you accept this formula for the time being, if you want your happiness to increase, what should we do? Either increase the number of desires fulfilled, actualized, or reduce the number of desires harbored. Right? If you don't believe me, ask your child who is studying maths at home. What are we all trying to do? We are trying to increase our happiness by increasing the numerator. Are we successful? No. Somebody said no. Why? Because as we go about fulfilling our desires, insidiously, without our knowing it, the denominator also increases. And so, the more desires you fulfill, the more desires you entertain, and it's a hopeless game. You're caught on a non-stop treadmill, having to run faster and faster for rewards that mean less and less. And you can't jump out of the treadmill either, because you don't know what to do. And here is a way out. He says, so what Vedanta tells us, how the Bhagavad Gita helps us is, it gives us a formula by which you can increase the number of desires that are fulfilled. In other words, you can increase the numerator and also simultaneously work on the denominator, reduce the denominator systematically. In fact, even mathematically, the numerator is totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many desires you fulfilled. What really matters is the denominator. If somehow you're able to reduce that denominator, your happiness increases in leaps and bounds until, if you bring that denominator down to zero, what happens? Infinite happens. Now, once you reach the state of infinity, you add anything to infinite, it is still infinite. You take away anything from that infinite, it is still infinite. That's what he's saying here. Infinite plus infinite is also infinite. Infinite minus infinite is also infinite. That's the state. He's equating a man of realization to that mighty ocean where all the waters of the rivers enter and it doesn't make the slightest difference. That is the state that you and I are heir to. And particularly as Indians, we have this edge over other societies because it's spelled out so beautifully, so brilliantly. All we have to do is give ourselves a little time and practice it. Test it out. And as the Kathopanishad says, Uttishtha Jagrata Prapyavaran Nibodhata. Arise, awake. We Indians have been asleep for far too long. For centuries we've been asleep to this knowledge. And as individuals, for janmas together, we've been asleep to this great potential that we have. It's about time you arise, awaken to your potential. And don't stop till the goal is reached. Yes, there will be challenges. Yes, there will be impediments. Who doesn't have challenges? But a successful person is one who overcomes these challenges. And if you're able to do this, you see, momentarily we get inspired. I hope you are all inspired. But what happens is, you allow the law of diminishing intent to function. You know what the law of diminishing intent is? Right now you'll feel inspired. Oh, I must study the Gita. Because what you've heard just now is just a little bit of what the Gita has to offer. So perhaps you're inspired, and I hope you are, to study more of the Gita. But by the time tomorrow morning comes, you'll say, oh, it's okay. Law of diminishing intent. That's why even in management they say, act when you're inspired. And if you do this, sooner or later, Nachiret, the Gita promises, you'll get to that brilliant state of realization. Thank you.